everybody, welcome. I am delighted to have joining me today Ava Wood. Those of you who've read the Idaho 4, my new book with James Patterson about the college murders in Moscow, Idaho, will know that Ava lived next door to 1122 King Road, and that Ava was one of the friends of the 4 victims who went over there on that awful morning of Sunday, November the 13th, 2022, and that you were interviewed by the police. And as we also now know, you'd had your own scary experience in your apartment close to that house a few weeks before that you told the FBI and you told the police about. And I know, you were you expecting to be called if this thing had gone to trial, Ava? Yes.
Yeah.
You were expecting to have to testify?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Unfortunately.
So what I'd love to do is, first of all, let's get your thoughts on Brian Koberger's sentencing last week. What happened in that courtroom? Well, you're in California, right? You did not go for that.
No. Uh-uh.
But first of all, were you surprised to see Emily Allant stand up and testify on behalf of Bethany Funk, one of the surviving roommates?
Yes. I anticipated Emily to potentially speak on behalf of Xana. So when she was the very first person to walk into the courtroom and give the statement on behalf of Bethany, I just felt my heart sink because, Emily is one of my closest friends, and I could feel her anxiety through just the camera and through the phone. And it just was not a good feeling seeing one of your best friends having to go do that. But, I'm kudos to her for doing it because it takes such a strong individual to be able to go up there and read a statement, whether that was a personal statement from her or read somebody else's statement on behalf of them.
So was Emily, I mean, I obviously, have got to know you and Emily, all of your friend group so well. It's been one of the great privileges of reporting this book. But I didn't know that, I know Emily and Dylan Mortensen were very, very close sorority sisters, right, in Pi Phi. I mean, that's why Dylan had reached out to Emily that morning.
Mm-hmm.
But so why do you think Bethany reached out to Emily? I think you've told me when we've chatted on the phone that happened literally at the 11th hour the night before, right?
Mm-hmm. I think Bethany trusts Emily. I think Bethany knows or knew that Emily has already been in that courtroom once before when he entered his plea deal weeks prior. So I think that Bethany maybe felt comfortable and confident that Emily was going to be able to keep her composure as much as possible while reading Bethany's statement.
Had Bethany considered doing it herself, do you know?
I don't personally know that question, so I don't want to give any false information, but I would assume yes, that she was potentially planning on going to give that statement herself. But I think as obviously the time swindled down to the actual morning or even the night before, I get it. And I understand backing out because your emotional well-being is far more important than going and giving a statement when you maybe just cannot do it.
So, Ava, what did you think as you watched that hearing? I mean, we had Emily, then we had Dylan, and then we had each of the 3 families other than the Chapins. I mean, can you walk us through sort of the gamut of emotions you felt watching that and watching him?
Mhm. Um, so obviously there was 4 different, cameras or 4 different screens that was televised, 2 of which were facing him and 2 of which were or 1 of which was facing the judge and the other was facing the, podium. And obviously, right when it started and I saw Emily walk into that courtroom, I felt my heart just sink into my stomach. And I was going through all those emotions of like, okay, I need to gear up at the fact that this is going to be hard. This is something that we are all reliving, not just me, but my friends and the families. We all have to relive this moment. So when I watched Emily and Dylan's victim impact statements, or Bethany and Dylan's victim impact statements, I just was crying through the whole thing. And I was crying because my heart was with my friends. My heart was with those people. And I couldn't imagine the amount of anxiety and overwhelming feeling that they were feeling because I was feeling it sitting on the other side. So watching that was really, really sad for me. Um, and then obviously all the other families that decided to speak and give the statements. At the end of all of it, I felt very numb. Like, I almost didn't feel like I had any more tears left to cry. I didn't want to cry anymore over the situation just because it has been so long, and I don't want this to continue to ruin my life and consume me. Uh, the Gonzalez statements were extremely powerful. I don't think there's any other way to describe that than the word powerful. Olivia was so poised. She kept her composure. She was very matter of fact. She knew exactly what she wanted to say. And if Olivia was my older sister, I applaud her because that was just incredible at the way that she didn't continue to victimize herself. She didn't continue to let the defendant know what chaos he has created in their lives. Instead, she wanted to call him out and almost turn the tables back on him and say, this is the chaos that you created in your life, not mine. So that was pretty impactful in and of itself. And then when Bill Thompson and the judge kind of gave their own statements, that was very gut-wrenching to me, just because I don't believe that a judge would typically give their own opinion in a situation like this. You can tell that a very, very large portion of the nation despises the defendant himself and has nothing good to say. So it almost felt like seeing that judge give his own little statement, and the fact that there was another maybe prosecuting it was either a defense attorney or a prosecution attorney that has been doing this for over a decade, and he always finds something nice to say about the defendant. And the fact that that person said, I could not find one good thing to say about this human being, really solidified what a monster he is.
But so let me ask you this, though, Ava. I mean, I spoke to James Fry, the Moscow police chief, at the time of the murders over the weekend. You know, I've been in constant touch with Steve Gonzalez, who, you know, like you, was very, very proud of his eldest daughter, Olivia, um, and how she conducted herself in that courtroom. But, you know, James Fry said to me that he's really seldom, if ever, seen such stone cold, immovable lack of emotion on somebody, you know, a convicted murderer's face. And this isn't the first sentencing he has been to, but it really, he said he's never actually seen such evil personified um, before. That Brian Koberger's lack of emotion was truly frightening to behold. And so, and obviously the fear of the Gonzalez family was that, he now goes to prison and he gets to control the narrative in some way by writing a book, by giving interviews. I mean, what was your feeling about that? I mean, you must have thought about it now in the days since.
Yeah. I was not surprised by his reaction at all, considering how many times he has appeared in a courtroom with, his defense attorney, the prosecution, the judge, reading off all these different court documents, all these different charges. He never once showed any kind of emotion. And within the last 2.5 years, when this act had taken place, I knew, and the details that I did know were evil. So I knew that the face behind that act was going to have no sort of reaction to begin with, because he didn't have a reaction when he did the act and tried to keep his composure. So I was not surprised by his reaction. And if anything, I'm kind of relieved that he didn't have any kind of reaction, because he doesn't deserve the fame on him being like, oh, wow, this was the first time he showed a different reaction within the last 2.5 years. Like, no, you keep that same reaction that you have, because that's the type of person that you are. So,
I mean, you obviously must have got straight onto the phone with, your friend group, who is all part of this close circle. I mean, I know of the 4 victims, Kaylee was probably the one you knew the best. Is that fair to say? Because, you're an AFI, she was an AFI.
it's a toss-up. I became so close with Xana. She was my rock, and that's how I became so close with Emily. So, I mean, I loved everybody in each different way, but yes, Kaylee was my sorority sister. I did live with her in the sorority house for 2 years, so we did get to know each other on a different level. But then once we moved out into our own apartments, I lived across the street from Xana, so I kind of gained a different relationship with Xana because I was over there 24 hours of the day. I would go over there in the morning and come home at night. So at times I felt like I was an honorary Pi-Phi, an honorary roommate who was always over at Xana's house. So it's a toss-up between, who was I closer with, but I loved them all individually in different ways, for sure.
So what was, after that sentencing, what was the general takeaway among you all? I mean, do you feel you can now put this behind you? I mean, uh, when something like this happens, I think Dylan Mortensen said it very well. You're not, you can't rewind the clock. Something has changed forever. But, but, did it give you some closure?
Yes. It feels good to no longer have to worry about court dates coming up or trial coming up, when all of us are working, it's not easy for us to just take time off of work to go sit in a courtroom where we actually really don't want to be. So I'm just glad that that piece of it is over. I do feel that there was some sort of justice that was served, because now he can never do this to anybody else ever again. And if there was a jury and we did go to trial, there could have been a potential for him to get off or there just could have been so many different outcomes, whereas this one was written on the books. It was set in stone. There's no possibility of him getting out. So, do I feel a sense of closure? Absolutely. But there will never, ever be any kind, the proper amount of justice will never be served. Ever. So, I feel
What have
like I
you
can breathe.
can you share with the people tuning in and who no doubt will be watching this later as well? Why were you being called to testify? And because if people haven't read the book, they may not know the story. You know, what was it that you had that prosecutors thought was important to talk about at a trial?
So, it could have been a number of things. I was subpoenaed by the defense, so I would have been having to answer the questions to Ann Taylor. Obviously, I probably would have been cross-examined by the prosecution side as well, but it was either because I was on scene that morning and Ann Taylor wanted to know what I saw that morning, what information was said at the time of the crime scene when we were all sitting outside to try and poke those holes, or she was calling me because of the relationship of my apartment and I can see directly 1122 King Road. That could have also been another factor. And then the third factor was I when I got pulled into the police station the morning of November 13th, the police had asked me during my interview or investigation, was there anything that we need to know about that was out of the ordinary or scary within a certain time frame? And I was like, wait, yes. So on October 14th at about 1:03 in the morning, I have metal stairs that go up to my apartment. So the metal stairs are actually attached to my apartment. So you can hear footsteps and it shakes the entire apartment. So I heard these footsteps coming up my stairs. And I heard my doorknob, because it was a pretty finicky doorknob, and I actually got a deadbolt added to it right when I first moved in a year prior to this incident happening. I heard my doorknob like try and open, and it was locked. And I, at first, was a little freaked out, but then I realized it's Moscow. Moscow's safe. I've never had an issue or a fright or a feeling that Moscow was unsafe. So my initial reaction was, this is just somebody leaving a party. They're probably intoxicated. It was an accident. They might not know where they're going, or they were just trying to come into my apartment and say hi as an old friend. Then it got me started thinking after the incident happened, what if it could have been the defendant himself? What if this? So I feel those could have been the three reasons that the defense did subpoena me and want me to testify at trial.
Well, and take us back to that awful morning. I mean, why was it that you were outside that house? It was because you looked out your window, right, and you saw. Um, so why don't you just walk us through what you did see?
So I woke up 9 o'clock on Sunday, and was just getting myself kind of ready. I was cleaning my apartment. I had some homework to do before the following week, which was Thanksgiving break. So I just wanted to catch up on any projects or homework that I had. I made lunch, I made soup, and I was sitting down at my kitchen table to get ready to start my homework. And I heard sirens. And I was like, oh, I didn't think much of it. But then they kept getting closer and closer and louder and louder. And before I know it, it felt like they were in my apartment. That's how loud it was. So I obviously was concerned and looked outside my kitchen window and saw police officers and an ambulance on King Street and Queen Street, but I didn't see where they were going. So then I went into my spare bedroom and I looked outside and I saw my friends, Emily and Hunter and Dylan and Josie and Bethany, standing outside and clearly distraught. And the first person that I saw was Emily. That's my person. That's my buddy. And it was the initial reaction was something's wrong with potentially Emily. And I need to go out there and comfort my friend. I need to make sure that she's okay. And she was cold. I could see that so clearly. So I stopped what I was doing. I had shorts on. I had a sweatshirt, or I had sweats on and like a t-shirt. I grab a sweatshirt. I grab my blanket and I run out there. And I didn't lock my apartment. My phone was about to die. And I go out there and I put the blanket over Emily's shoulders and I just like melted
Back.
her. What?
Sorry, Ava, the internet. I'm
That's
plagued
okay.
by internet problems at the moment. Are you there?
Yes. So can you hear me?
So go on. I think you've frozen
Okay.
annoyingly. Yes, I can.
So I run
I
outside and I
can.
put the.
So so
Can you hear me?
hold on a sec. Hold on, everyone. There?
I'm here.
How is
Good.
your connection? Do you want to?
Wait, I
Do
think
you want
it's good.
to? Are you there?
I'm here. I can see you clearly.
I can hear you, but I can't. So you know what? And I can. I can. Are you there?
I'm here.
Let. All right. Well, I don't know why your screen has frozen my end.
Oh,
But I can hear you clearly.
okay.
So hopefully it will just catch up. It's quite annoying. Um, it's quite annoying. So go on, keep explaining what
Okay.
happened.
So I run out of my apartment. I put the blanket on Emily and I just pretty much melted her down to the floor to sit and hold her. And my initial reaction wasn't so much of what's going on, it was more so to make sure that Emily was okay. And then they started putting the caution tape up. I was in my head about where's this person? Where's this roommate? Who do we need to call? Where's this person? And so it was probably 20 or 30 minutes where we just kind of sat in silence and we were crying and I was holding Emily, making sure that she was okay, comforting her. And then Hunter came and sat down with us and so I put the blanket over him too. And finally at one point I whispered into Emily's ear and said, "Where's
Hold on.
Xana?"
You know what I'm going to do?
Yes,
Ava, can you see me?
I can see you. Where'd she go? Technology is a wild thing.